Ever get that feeling? Like something just under the surface, An emotion, maybe, or a truth. You just can't quite put it into words.
Like trying to explain a dream. You kind of remember the feeling, but the specifics,
Yeah,
gone.
exactly. What if there was a way, though, to get to that deeper level? See those hidden landscapes, the ones in our minds?
That's where art comes in. It bypasses those defenses we put up with words, gets right to the unconscious. Talking can't always do
Or
that.
it's like a visual language then,
Yeah,
speaking volumes when words just fail.
you got it. And that leads us right into our deep dive today. We're looking at Drawing the Line Art Therapy with the Difficult Client by Lisa Moschini.
This book, wow, a goldmine of insights. How art becomes this powerful tool in therapy for individuals, for groups, across all sorts of experiences.
Moschini, she really covers it all.
Yeah.
From the basics of art therapy, like how we use defense mechanisms,
Mm.
all the way to the actual techniques. Specific art directives therapists use.
We wanted to give you, the listener, the best stuff from this book. The most fascinating, most insightful bits.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's dive in. One thing that really hooked me early on, it's this idea that in art therapy, the art itself, it's not just a pretty picture, it's a symbol.
It's representing something deeper, right? Often feelings we're not even aware of on a conscious level.
Exactly. The book starts with this powerful example. A preteen asked to do a self-portrait, but just using shapes and colors. What came out was this intense image. Dark red, a headless body kind of floating, mouth wide open, like crying into nothingness. Figure I.1 if you have the book.
It's hard to look at and not feel something, isn't it? That distress, the pain, it just bypasses any need for explanation.
Mhm.
Words wouldn't have the same raw impact.
It really highlights how art can speak those deep, unspoken feelings. Makes you wonder, right, about all the emotions we carry around, maybe not even knowing. The book also mentions these symbols. They can communicate our inhibitions, bring up old memories, but also, and this is interesting, point towards what might be possible in the future.
Yeah, a symbol. It has this double nature, echoing the past, but also hinting at potential. Like the book quotes Kask, the symbol is a central point for psychological development. It's a foundation for growth in therapy.
And this isn't just some new age psychology thing, right? The book talks about how ancient cultures, totally separate from each other, they often shared similar myths and beliefs.
Like, think about the belief that the world sits on a giant animal, maybe a tortoise. Or stories of a super skilled archer rebelling against authority. Happens all over, like William Tell. The book connects this to Freud's archaic remnants and Jung's archetypes. These are universal experiences, almost like blueprints for humans. Symbols and images hitting us on a deep, almost instinctual level.
It's like a shared visual language
Yeah.
built into us. The book has this great example. A client's working on an outside mask. Later on, they go back and add all this red glitter spray, a few strands of hair, very carefully. You might think, just a little detail.
But that's the point, isn't it? Even the tiniest things can mean a lot symbolically. The therapist even wondered out loud, what does this spray mean for you? Is it something they wanted to stand out, maybe hide, something they just couldn't say with words? That focus on the detail, it became a whole conversation in itself.
It's not just about the obvious symbols either, is it? The book talks about a client explaining their art very logically, step by step, but the unconscious meaning, it still comes through. The inside mask with all the colorful stripes, remember?
Oh, yeah. The client, they explained each color. Red glitter for happy, black for anger, rust for
Yeah.
kind of in between. Lower section was sadness, all neat and tidy. But here's the thing. The base color under all those stripes, black, anger.
So even trying to categorize their emotions, the art shows something deeper, maybe less acknowledged, like it cuts through the mental clutter.
Exactly.
We've talked about how art can reveal these hidden feelings through symbols. But what about when we try to dodge those uncomfortable things, those defenses we put up? That's where defense mechanisms come in, right?
Right on. We all develop these strategies, these defense mechanisms to protect ourselves from anxiety, painful stuff. Art therapy, though, it can be super helpful. It lets clients explore these defenses, even work through them. It's safe, it's indirect. They can express things that would be scary to face head on.
The book covers a bunch of different defense mechanisms. Let's start with intellectualization. How does art help someone see that in action?
Intellectualization, it's when someone avoids the feelings in a situation. They overthink, focus only on the logic. There's this example in the book, a group mural. They're drawing animals, making a scene. They choose dinosaurs, big, powerful creatures, right? Can make someone anxious. But instead of dealing with that, they get stuck on logistics.
Where they plan it all out, a lake, rock formations, like stepping stones for the dinosaurs, trying to outsmart any unease just with logic.
And someone keeps suggesting a fence, but the others, no, the dinosaurs won't be violent. We just got to think it through enough.
It's like that focus on rational solutions, it becomes a way to avoid the anxiety. The art itself becomes a picture of that defense in real time.
Right. For you, the listener, it shows how this happens in the art and maybe in your own life too.
What about projection? We hear that one a lot. How does that show up in art therapy?
Simply put, projection is when we take our own feelings, the ones we don't want to admit, and put them onto other people. In art therapy, it's unconscious. These feelings get put onto the art. The figures, the colors, the whole scene. It's like pushing something outward because it feels too much to handle on the inside.
So the art becomes a sort of mirror, reflecting back what we might not want to see in ourselves.
Exactly.
There's also conversion. That one sounds very specific.
Conversion, the book defines it using Laughlin's work. It's when emotional conflict turns into a physical thing, like a symptom, even a disability. No medical reason, though. It's the mind trying to escape emotional pain, and it ends up showing up in the body.
Wow. The mind-body connection can be really powerful. The book doesn't have a visual example for this one, right?
Right, no specific art example for conversion, but it's good to know about. Shows how complex all this can be, how the mind works to avoid pain.
Okay, and asceticism. That's not a word you hear every day.
No, not really.
Yeah.
Asceticism, in this case, it's about a really strong prohibition of your own instincts, urges. It gets so intense that denying yourself actually feels good.
So almost like taking pride in self-denial.
Yeah, in a way. The thing is, art directives, they can give a safe outlet for this. You can express those denied instincts symbolically. No need to act out in a harmful way.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, regression. The book talks about minor and major regression. Can you break that down for us?
Laughlin, he categorized it. Minor regression is more temporary, often seen with mental illness. Major regression, though, that's a big shift. It's going back to earlier developmental stages, but it really affects how you function, often linked to psychotic states.
The book mentions institutionalized regression. Right. Adults in long-term care, they might adapt to a more dependent lifestyle over time.
Yeah, they get used to being taken care of, and they might regress a bit. Then there's a patient whose regression was so total it scared him.
He'd been looked after his whole life, had a criminal record, mental illness, and regression became his main way of being. Then there's the opposite, infantile regression, seen in a schizophrenic client triggered by a specific trauma they remembered.
Figure 1.24. That drawing does look childlike, I'll admit. But the key is this client. Other drawings they did were more developed, realistic. So it wasn't that they were stuck at a child's level. It was a reaction to that specific trigger, a retreat because of the stress.
Okay, so not a permanent state, but a response to something overwhelming.
Right. Important for the listener to understand that. A drawing might look simple, but it doesn't mean the person is always at that level. Context is key.
Makes sense. Undoing is another one mentioned. The patient who adds rain to his drawing after the therapist said his wish to marry meant he needed closeness. What's the takeaway there?
The therapist's words, they hit too close to home, you know.
Yeah.
The rain, it was a way to wash away that feeling of being exposed, create some distance from needing someone. Like, nope, covering that up now.
It's using art to subtly push back when things get too real, too close to the bone.
Exactly.
Reaction formation and repression are also mentioned, right, though more briefly.
Yeah. Reaction formation, the book says it can be seen in people who've done harmful things, like sexual abuse. They create these elaborate excuses to downplay what they did. Repression, on the other hand, that's pushing uncomfortable thoughts and feelings out of your awareness unconsciously. Like William's mother in the book, she seemed to be blocking out her son's drug problem.
So with all these different ways we try to protect ourselves, the common thing is art offers a back door. It bypasses those mental blocks. Our unconscious, it can speak through images, even when words would get caught up in our defenses. The book really stresses how important it is to understand developmental stages in art therapy. It brings in Freud, Piaget, Erikson. How do these theories help an art therapist understand what a client's artwork might be saying?
These developmental models, they're like a map, you know. They guide us in how we see a client's art, how we approach therapy. Like Freud's psychosexual stages. Remember the oral stage? Infants exploring everything with their mouths.
Right, putting everything in their mouths.
It can tell us about personality traits, issues that pop up if someone gets stuck at that early stage. Then there's Piaget, his cognitive stages. He looked at how kids' drawings develop, from simple pictures to more complex, detailed ones.
The book mentions how details and drawings actually show a child's understanding of the world, referencing Goodenough's research, like how much they've grasped about the world around them.
Exactly. The details, the perspective, how they draw familiar things, it's a clue to their cognitive development. Then we have Erickson, his psychosocial stages. He focused on the social and emotional challenges throughout life. The book points out generativity versus self-absorption. That's a big one in mid-adulthood. It's about contributing to the world, leaving a mark.
Now, how do fairy tales, myths, legends, how do those fit into this developmental angle in art therapy?
Those stories, especially the original raw versions, they can really hit those deep needs, internal struggles we all have. They're common to different stages of development. The book suggests asking clients to draw things from these stories. The hero, the villain, big changes that happen. It can be a powerful exercise.
They tap into those universal themes, right? Like the archetypes we were talking about earlier, inner conflicts, but played out symbolically in a safe way.
Right.
The book also mentions collecting in child development, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, Piaget, in his concrete operational stage, he saw collecting as a big deal for kids. Starts with just gathering random stuff. Then they get more organized, more picky about what they collect. It helps them understand the world, create order.
And it even mentions Freud, his huge collection of antiquities. He was dealing with grief after his father died. It shows how this simple act, collecting, can be so deep psychologically. Maybe it's about control or connecting to the past.
It's not just a kid thing, you know.
Yeah.
It can serve emotional needs all through life.
Okay, the book then goes into art projective testing. It talks about specific tools like the draw person, DAP, house tree person, HTP, and the 8-card redrawing test, 8CRT. What's the advantage of using these more structured approaches?
These tests, they're really useful. They give clinicians a framework for figuring out personality, getting a deeper look at a client's inner world. Instead of just saying, draw whatever you want, these tests give a specific prompt. This can sometimes bring out unconscious stuff more easily, but still lets the client express themselves.
The book talks about the history of the DAP. Good enough, she used it to measure intelligence in kids. Then Macover came along. He shifted the focus to personality. The drawing, it's like a peek into the person's inner world.
Yeah, Macover thought the way you draw a person, it says a lot. The size of the body parts, details you add or leave out, how hard you press the pencil. It can show emotional maturity, anxieties, aggression, even your overall sense of self.
And the HTP test, it adds the house and the tree. What do those elements bring to the assessment?
The HTP, it looks at personality, but also the person's relationship with their environment. Buck, he developed a scoring system for it. He saw the house as representing the family, the home life, the tree, that's about growth, strength, and the person, of course, is their self-image. Even little things left out, like smoke from a chimney, can mean something.
There's a great case example. A young guy, his parents are divorced. He draws a house with no chimney, a tree with a really prominent, almost phallic trunk. And he really focused on the apples on the tree. What might that tell an art therapist using the HDP?
Well, no chimney on a house might mean a lack of warmth, emotional connection at home, no clear foundation for the house. Could be instability, feeling ungrounded. That strong tree trunk, it might show a need for power, ego strength. And the apples, especially if you kept erasing or redoing them, they could be about anxiety, dependency, those oral needs. Apples and nourishment, you know.
It's amazing how much you can unpack from a simple drawing. The book also makes a point about considering culture when interpreting the HTP.
Super important. There are general patterns in how kids' art develops across cultures, sure. But you got to be sensitive to the person's background, like the example in the book, the patient from India. His drawing, it might have been about language barriers, the missing mouth, or feeling cut off from his culture, the barred door on the house. Can't just use Western standards without thinking about that context.
Makes sense. And then there's the 8CRT, the 8-card redrawing test. That one's different. It uses a series of drawings. Why that approach?
The 8CRT, developed by Caligor, it's designed to look at different layers of personality, but also, importantly, how well someone functions under stress. As you go through those 8 drawings, it shows how they handle pressure, how they might start to unravel.
The case of the teenager with the drug problem, that was a good example. His drawings changed a lot. Started with this grand, powerful figure. Then it's like he regressed, drew Spider-Man, then the Hulk. What did that tell the therapist?
That progression, it's a visual story of his struggles, his defenses. The first image, the superhero, maybe that's a mask, hiding vulnerability. Then The regression, the childlike figures, then the Hulk, all that rage. It shows what's bubbling under the surface, the potential for outbursts when those defenses break down under pressure.
So these tests give us a snapshot, or with the 8CRT, almost a film of the client's inner world. Now, the book also has a section on directives in art therapy. What are these exactly?
Directives. They're prompts, instructions the therapist gives to guide the art making. They're a starting point, tailored to specific goals, the client's developmental level, the issues they're facing. All that is considered.
And that first meeting, the book mentions how crucial it is for building trust. Directives can be used even then.
Absolutely. Trust and safety, that's the foundation. The book gives examples like the dual scribble drawing. The therapist and client, they make a scribble together, then turn it into a picture. Good for clients who are resistant or use defenses like undoing. Another early one is the initial game. Just draw your initials. Sounds simple, but can hint at how they see their identity.
And there was the memory drawing, the guy who made a fabric insert like his grandma's quilt, a way to tap into good memories, comfort.
Exactly. Using fabric, that was important too, that sensory connection, the feeling of it. It added to the memory, the comfort. This also talks about pass-around directives in group therapy. One piece of art gets passed around, each person adds to it, a way to see how the group works, how they interact.
And the emotion pie, using collage to show facial expressions, feelings. Very direct way to connect with your emotional side. Closure directives are also mentioned for group therapy, helping members think about their progress, what they want to achieve as the group ends.
All these directives, they provide structure, focus. Clients explore certain themes, therapy moves forward in a guided way. But even a simple directive, the book says it can trigger transference. Clients unconsciously put feelings, patterns from past relationships onto the therapist. It all comes out in the art.
Fascinating. The book then talks about art therapy in different settings, individual, group, and family therapy. It uses some really detailed case examples too. Let's touch on each of these settings. Individual therapy, the case of John, the schizophrenic client with the history of sexual offenses, that was a complex one, showed how art can be a window into someone's world.
John's case, it really showed how art could reveal his delusions, his need for affection, the ways he showed his inner conflict. The golf and croquet imagery, that was recurring. Even a casual comment about wanting to clean up his art, that hinted at growing insight. But his schizophrenia, that was an ongoing challenge, of course.
And then Dion, he also had chronic schizophrenia, but his therapy was different, presented different challenges, that leader-follower drawing exercise that seemed to give some good insights into his relationships with others.
Yeah, it showed how hard it was for him to move from a passive, dependent role to a more active, competent one. His illness had sort of stunted his development in that area.
Randy's case, the one with the trauma history, and using that mutual storytelling technique with art, that seemed very powerful, helped him process those difficult experiences.
It let him get those memories out through metaphors and stories. And the therapist, retelling his stories but with better outcomes. Randy started to see healthier ways of coping. The art he made alongside this, you could see the shift. Better emotional control, positive changes in his behavior.
So art combined with storytelling becomes a tool for healing, for imagining new possibilities.
Exactly.
Moving on to group therapy, the book says the group setting can be like a mirror of individual issues, but on a bigger scale between people. And that being present in the group, the here and now, that's key.
The group becomes a mini society, right? A place to see how you interact with others.
Yeah.
The book gives lots of examples of art therapy directives for groups. Exercises on finding what's similar and different between members, dream drawing to explore shared unconscious themes, pass around assignments like the maze, seeing how they work together, then using objects like a penguin or a flag to represent personal meanings, or creating a group drawing of mental illness to explore shared feelings, and self-disclosure directives to build deeper connections, make the group a safe space to be vulnerable.
In family therapy, the focus shifts to the family unit, right? Those hidden dynamics, the unconscious stuff playing out between family members. The family mural drawing, that seems like a core technique here.
Yeah, the family mural, it lets the therapist watch how the family interacts, see those unconscious patterns, the transference between them. Like William and his mom, their case showed how differently they saw things. The mom, she was repressing a lot, and William, he was fighting for independence. Then the Harrison family, their mural was full of bottled up emotions, all those individual defenses that were messing with the whole family dynamic.
So much insight you can get from just observing a family create something together.
Absolutely.
It's really amazing how versatile art therapy is across all these different needs, all these settings.
It truly is. It's a unique, powerful way to understand the human mind. Goes way beyond what we can say with words.
So the big takeaway for you, the listener, art therapy, it's this amazing window into our inner world. It helps us uncover hidden feelings, figure out those defenses we all have, and ultimately grow, understand ourselves better, whether it's
Yeah.
one person, a group, or a whole family.
And the techniques, the case studies in the book, they show just how much potential art has to be a healing, transformative tool.
It makes you think differently about nonverbal stuff, doesn't it? Not just in therapy, but in everyday life. What do those doodles we make during meetings really mean? How does someone's home decor, their choice of colors, what does that say about them? Maybe we should all pay more attention to these quiet forms of communication, the ones around us and the ones inside us. If you're intrigued by this dive into art therapy, I encourage you to keep exploring. There's a whole world of fascinating stuff out there.